Hey, welcome back, everybody. And today's topic is you may not be good enough yet.
Well, that was a long pause.
Did you like my dramatic pause?
That was very dramatic.
Well, that yet word is important, and we're going to talk about that today. But David, this is a topic that I don't know that many of us maybe want to admit or own it, but it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think this is we're living in the real world on this one. It's you know, when you start up your own business, it brings out the best and worst in you. Let's just be honest. I mean, in the
Yeah.
one side of you, it's bringing out your dreams. It's bringing out this excitement, this enthusiasm for like, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to build the life that I want to build. I'm going to build this new world. I'm going to create something new for myself. I'm going to take control of my life. I'm going to take charge of things. I'm not just going to do what everybody else wants me to do.
Yeah.
And those are all those hopes and dreams. And those are amazing things. And those are powerful things. And those will drive you through a lot of things. But there's also that, issue of if you, unless you're starting it with a group of other people and everyone's picked their own lane,
Yeah.
most people are starting as solopreneurs. Most
Yeah.
people are starting on their own. And if you're a solopreneur, all of a sudden you realize that you're responsible for everything. And you're responsible to create a website if you need a website. You're responsible for managing the finances. You're responsible for doing marketing work. You're responsible for making sales.
Mhm.
You're
Well,
responsible for handling issues with a customer or whatever it may be. And so all of a sudden, like, you have this duality going on. One is like this excitement of how great this is going to be. The other part of it is we're now staring face to face at the things we're not good at,
right.
because all of us have some. And at that list I just laid out, that short little list, I can guarantee you everybody can hear that list and say, yeah, I'm not good at that.
Yeah.
That there's one aspect there I'm
Mhm.
not good at that.
Mhm.
And what I would like to say is what Chris said earlier, except I'll shorten the pause a little bit there for a second. I was wondering how long you, I'm like, you are going to say the last word, right? You're not going to leave us there. You may not be good enough yet.
Yeah.
And that's the truth of becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it, is that all of us, when we start this journey, are facing the gap,
Mhm.
because you realize, like, here's who I am today.
Mhm.
And you realize, because you're looking at, like, okay, for this to work, for this business to take off and be successful, these are the things that are going to happen.
Mhm.
This has to happen, that has to happen, that has to happen. And okay, if for this to work, all that stuff has to get done.
Mhm.
And if all that stuff has to get done, huh, that means I'm going to have to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not good at it. And now you're facing this gap between who
Mhm.
you are and who you need to be.
Well, and most of us have lived and come out of the world of being more of a specialist more than we even realize, right? Like, so if a typical day job, you're doing a specific role, task, whatever. If you're in the accounting department, that's where you focus. If you're in the marketing department, that's where you focus. If you're in the sales and or product delivery, whatever lane you're in in your business, your organization, you've been more of a specialist than you really realize, even if you've done other things along the way. But to your point, in our own businesses, we have to own the fact that it's all on us, like you said, and we have to learn or outsource. And then, a lot of the challenges early on, David, is simply that we don't have the cash flow to outsource a lot of things.
Right.
And so we have to figure things out. I mean, you and I both have the experience where it's like, we built our first websites. I remember literally, almost, well, it's been a decade, tinkering around, building websites, trying to figure things out. And I remember even long before that, probably 20 years ago, when I was doing it for another group that I was a part of, it was way harder. Like I was like, I don't understand codes and I don't understand all this stuff, right? I'm not a web developer, but thankfully, years later when I was starting my business, the tools were easier and better, and they continue to get better. But even that, how many people struggle with, okay, where do I begin? What do I do? How do I do this thing just to get up and running? And so I think you're right. And it exposes a lot, right? It exposes a lot of things, and then we can start doubting ourselves. And I think the reality and what we really want to focus on today is not the negative side of this, but the positive side is that word yet, because we have to face these gaps. And then, but there is hope on the other side of really facing them and developing.
And I agree. I mean, that's the thing. Like you said, I think a lot of us, if we worked in another organization, we look at it and go, the only thing that's important is the stuff that I'm doing, and the stuff that I'm good at it, so I can do this. Well,
Right.
now you get out into the real world and start your own thing, and you suddenly realize, maybe that stuff those other people were doing was more important than I thought it was, and suddenly, wow, I guess they did have an important role in this process, and they were
They
actually
weren't as useless as I thought.
they weren't as useless as I was thinking. Exactly. And so you have that, and then now you're staring at those things, you're realizing that, oh man, you know, this has to get done. Otherwise, I'm never going to have a successful business unless these things get done. And so what it really comes down to is you have a choice at this point. You can sit there and say, well, this is who I am and this is what I'm good at, and that's all I'm going to do. Well, okay, you can do that. You can take that approach, but then you're going to be stuck.
Yeah.
Because your business is always going to be hamstrung. Your business is always going to be stopped short of what it could be because you're not doing the things that need to be done. And those things are not happening, and you're always going to be falling short. Or you can just adopt a different mindset, which is that growth mindset of saying, all right, I'm not very good at that. I'm not. And just staring. And this is not a condemning yourself. This is not
Right.
this is not sitting here going, man, I'm a terrible person. I can't do this. No, that's not what we're saying. We're not saying that you can't do this. What we're saying is when you get started in this journey, you realize you have gaps.
Yeah.
There are things that I'm not great at yet, but the operative word is yet. And what you have to understand is all of these things are learnable.
Yeah.
You can learn how to build a website. You can learn how to sell. You can learn how to do marketing. And the thing is, a lot of people, they look at it and go, well, I don't want to do that because it's bad. Well, especially on the sales and marketing side, it's icky or it's sleazy and I don't want to do it. Well, guess what? Without sales, there ain't no business.
Until a sale is made, you don't have any customers or clients, right?
All you got is bills.
Yeah.
At that point, you don't have any income, and that thing is just going to be an expense on you for a long time. So the reality is, you need to be able to look at this as like, okay, this is a chance for me to grow as a person.
Yeah.
And you have to set aside some of your biases. You have to set aside some of the things that you look at and go, sales and marketing is icky. Well, it can be. It can be. There are sleazy marketers. There are sleazy salespeople out there. Let's just be completely honest. Like, we run into them all the time. All of us have had times where somebody is just pushing to sell.
Right.
You walk into, I don't like going into furniture stores for the most part, because and we all have those moments, Chris, where, okay, we need a new sofa. The one we're sitting on is hurting my back. I'm tired of sitting in pain. This thing needs to go. We got to go do this. And so, you've dealt with the sofa for as long as you could,
right?
Because you don't want to go in. But all right, we have to go in. And sometimes you walk into a furniture store and they're totally fine. They're actually very helpful. They're very useful. And other times they hound you like you're a piece of meat, man.
Right.
Here come the vultures. And you're like, uh-oh. And my wife and I have a bit of a tag team approach where I'm like, all right, I'll take on the salespeople, and then you duck behind.
Yeah, you go look.
You go look and see if you can find something that you like. And in the meantime, I'll keep them, I'll distract them. I'm like, all right. And then at the end, I'll just look at her like, God, you owe me.
Yeah, that's right.
You owe me bad. So,
but what I think you're bringing up is interesting, though. It's because of experiences we've had. We tend to look at even skills we need to develop positively or negatively, right? So if you've had good experiences, then you could look at it and say, okay, I'm interested in this. I want to do this. But if you had the negative side of things, you've seen the bad examples, then you just don't. I think our reaction is, I don't want to be lumped in with those people or that, thing. And that's maybe fair and whatever, but it doesn't diminish the fact that we still need to learn the skills.
Right.
And I think this is huge. Is David, you've said this before, that building a business has been, between that and parenting, the biggest personal growth journeys you've been on. I agree. I think so much of this is, I look back at a decade of learning and growing and just figuring things out and realizing, man, I know so much more today and I can help people so much more today. And I don't even realize it, because it's that whole thing of, when we have incremental growth over time, we don't necessarily see ourselves being experts in something or really good at something. But then I have conversations with people, even outside the business realm of, doing coaching and training, but friends of mine that are like in nonprofit organizations, they just don't even know how to do certain things. And I'm like, oh, we should do this, this, and this. And they're like, how do you know that? Right. But I didn't know that a decade ago. I know it now because I had to learn and grow. And I think one of the most impactful things for me, that kind of a mindset shift in this topic, was realizing that when I run up against something that I am not good at, instead of it truly letting it stop me, it's like a dashboard light that tells me, okay, that's the thing you need to learn next.
Right.
So for me, right, I mean, I think a lot of our audience, a lot of folks that we run into, at least, maybe they've written a book, they've created a course, they have a training program, so they're good content, good content creators. They have a good program, they have a good product. What they struggle with is learning the sales and marketing side, learning how to not be a best kept secret. And by doing that, by or understanding that, you realize, okay, I need to get better at marketing. I need to get better at sales. I need to learn how to write compelling copy. All these things that are a part of this, that a marketing department or a sales department would do in a company. Now you have to learn that in your own company. And but when we say, well, I can't do this, so I can't move forward, that's one that'll stop you. But or you could say, you know what, this is my next learning that I need to, really go after. When I change my own mindset about that, then I'm like, okay, now this thing is actually this wall, this obstacle is actually a good thing for me, because it's exposing to me the next thing I need to learn and grow in.
And I agree 100%. And I know far too often people that I've worked with over, as I've been working with people for a long time now.
Yep.
And I've seen this too often, where I'll be working with somebody and they'll be like, well, I have to get good at marketing, or I have to get good at sales. Well, then I quit. Because they do. They'll
Yeah.
end their business there because they're staring at their gap.
Yeah.
They know that I have to get good at this, and I'm not going to become that person. It becomes an identity crisis for them.
Well, yeah.
Because they're like, I'm not going to turn into that kind of a person. So I would just rather not have a business than to do that. And what you don't realize is that you think it's a binary choice. You think it's either I could be who I am, or I can have a business and be a sleazy, salesy person.
Right.
There's more options than that.
Yeah.
You can have your business and be successful without that. You
Right.
can do it in an ethical and in a moral and in a decent and honest way, but you have to be willing to put yourself into that position to say, okay, I'm going to learn this skill, but I'm going to learn how to do it appropriately. I'm going to have to learn how to do it in a way that fits with my moral compass and fits with my values.
Yeah.
So that I do it in such a way that I'm not feeling like I'm selling myself out.
Yeah. And I just think that's a critical thing, because it's really, I think some of it is, we have to keep focused on our why, our purpose, right? Of, I'm here to help my clients. I have this, story, this message, this, skill to help other people. So therefore I'm going to get over those mental hurdles of what I think, is sleazy or whatever, because the reality is, David, most of the people we know, they're never going to even cross that sleazy line because they care too much.
Right.
So I think a lot of it's just a mindset shift.
Right. And then a lot of people's businesses die right there.
Yeah.
Because they just won't, they're so opposed to even becoming anything like that is so distasteful to them. But they're thinking that's the only path.
Right.
They think that's the only way for them to be able to do this. And what they're refusing to do is to expand their vision and realize, that is a way that you can do this. And some people are doing that. They are being a little unethical in their behavior. And there's plenty of examples out there of people doing that.
Right.
And yet, what we're not considering is, okay, does that mean you never buy anything?
Right.
I'm willing to bet that answer is no, because you're still alive, and assuming that if you're still alive, you're eating at least, at the very least, and you're eating food. So it's just and there's a way to do this that is going to fit with who you are. There is a way to do this that's not going to require you to sacrifice your values, your standards, your integrity as a human being. But you have to open yourself up to that. Mm-hmm. You have to open yourself up to, okay, I know that I have areas in my life that I need to grow. There are things here that I have to get better at.
Yeah.
And I don't like how a lot of people do this.
Yeah.
But I'm going to push myself to explore ways of how can I get good at this and yet maintaining my integrity and yet maintaining who I see myself and my values as a person. And when you do that, you approach life in a very different place. You're approaching it from this like, I can do this. I need to learn how to do this. And I can do this in such a way that it will work. And I have faith that I'm going to find the solution, that I'm going to find a way to market and sell my business, to get customers, to bring people in, to generate the revenue so I can make this thing work in a way that's going to work for me, in a way that's going to fit my skill set, in a way that's going to fit my aptitudes, my abilities, that's going to fit my values. I'm going to find a way to do it. And what that does is that starts to change you. And you said earlier that, two things that have caused the most growth in my life, which is 100% true, is being a parent, which, I got 3 kids that are adults. Let's just say, leave it right there. None of them, I didn't kill any of them.
And you have the scars to prove it.
Yes, that should tell you all they're adults. They made it. They all got there. They're all functioning, and they're all reasonably solid human beings. So, anyway, but this is going to foster resilience in you. This is going to foster persistence in you. And I will tell you, if you're going to be in business, these are skills and attributes you need to have.
Yeah.
Because being in business is not something that just falls in your lap and you go, oh, look, man, I have a successful business like that. It just, manna from heaven raining down on me.
But don't you think that, I think one of our challenges, right, is when we're a kid. So, you have 3, now your boys just graduated college. So now all 3 of your kids have gone through college, graduated. So they, my son is starting college. I got 2 in high school. When we're kids, it's like we understand and we accept the fact that I don't know certain things. Therefore, I need to learn that, I need to learn my math or my English or, business or whatever you're going, your program is. But as we get older, this is the problem, I think, for a lot of the entrepreneurs we run into that we have had to work for ourselves as adults, is simply the fact that we have gotten stuck thinking that I'm supposed to know this stuff already, or what I do know is enough. And the reality is, when we're younger, we're basically in an educational, growth path that we just know. Until I know my multiplication and my division, I can't move to algebra, and I can't move on to all these other courses. But for whatever reason, and this is probably just what part of that mental shift is, you're entering a new space as an entrepreneur. And so it's okay to realize I don't know things, but I think a lot of it is humility. We have to humble ourselves and say, you know what, even if I've been really successful up till now and the other things I've done in life, this is new. And I need to give myself the grace that this is new and I'm going to have to learn new things rather than feeling beat up or beating myself up because I don't know things that I have never had to do before or experienced before. So this is the power of the yet, right? Is to realize, okay, just like as a kid, didn't know certain things. I didn't know how to ride a bike, and then I knew how to ride a bike. I didn't know how to do math, and then I knew how to do math. I didn't know how to write a paper, and then I knew how to write a paper, so forth and so on. Well, now it's the same thing. Like, I didn't know how to start a business. I didn't know how to build a website. I didn't know how to market. I didn't know how to have sales conversations because I didn't have to do those things in my previous roles and responsibilities, but now I do. So I don't know. I just think that's a big part of this is accepting the fact that we're entering new territory, and with that, you have to learn new things, and then when you learn those things, now you have them in your arsenal.
Right. And I 100% agree. And I think, we just have to adopt that mindset of like, you don't know this yet, and you don't have this skill yet, and that's okay. Because nobody, virtually no one, can walk in and just do this and run and be ultra successful unless they've had a massive amount of experience prior to this.
Right.
That was incredibly relevant, and they had already been building all those skills before they started their business. There are people out there, but those are people that have already paid the price. They've already learned the skills in a different environment.
But the point that you're making, though, is that we have to be careful of is not comparing ourselves to those people who came in. It's like if they've had 20 years of experience and they just happen to start something new and do the same thing, or they've had this experience
transitioning.
Yeah, that's completely different than you put them on.
It's like being a real estate agent for somebody else and then starting your own real estate agency. Well, you've already been getting clients. You've already doing all the work. You already know the whole process. You know the whole system. You're just creating a new business around the exact, so that's a different world. But then I would just say, because as you go into this, then there's this chance that you're going to get discouraged and you're going to get frustrated because now you're facing this time of like, okay, I'm not just going to walk into this and have money flowing immediately. Like I'll get some, and then I may be able to network my way into getting a few clients. I may be able to meet these people and get somebody to be a client, or I may have some things. But to build an actual business, that actually has legs, that can support me, that can handle things and do things for me, wow, that's going to take some extra work. There's going to be some extra things in here. And we just have to be okay with that. We have to accept the fact that this is a journey, that this is a process, that this is a growth path that we've placed ourselves on. And we have to be willing to stay on that path. And willing to be able to continue with it. And we have to remind ourselves of the stories of others that we've heard. It's like we all like to, I'm going to go back and, we all like as guys to watch the movie Rocky, where and his journey from a nobody on the streets of Philadelphia to, the world heavyweight champion boxer. We look, everybody's like, Rocky. What's everybody thinking about him standing in the ring, raising his fist? Yeah, I'm the champion. But none of us are thinking about those times in the gym where they show him, and then, obviously for a movie, that's incredibly shortened. But in real life, that's where he won. In real life, he was in there grinding, lifting, working, training, doing all these things to get strong enough to be able to have that opportunity. Years worth of working there to get the moments of the end result. And we have to remind ourselves of these stories of other people who started other businesses, who spent years developing and building, We think of, KFC, what an amazingly large franchise that is now. Well, that guy, that Colonel Sanders guy, had been trying to get a business going for his whole life and didn't really get this thing going until he was in his 60s. So years of being there. And so just reminding yourself, we all want to, we hear those stories and they're inspirational. We think, oh, they're amazing. But we're not truly appreciating all the struggle that they had to go through to get to that inspirational part. And so you have to be willing to give yourself that grace. You have to be willing to give yourself that time, that patience, and foster that resilience or persistence to stay that journey to get to that point where you're like, okay, I'm realizing that there are things that have to happen, and I got to do what I got to do to buy myself that time. Because it's going to take time for me to become good at marketing. It's going to take time for me to learn how to sell. It's going to take time for me to learn how to do these other things in my business. In the meantime, I got to buy myself some time over here. I got to do things so that I can earn enough income that I can keep this boat floating long enough for me to go and spend. Okay, I learn this, and this, and I'm going to study and I'm going to work and I'm going to dig into these things to build these skills so that I can buy myself and bridge that gap and to be able to do that. And the steps that just involved in doing that are really, too often I think people just want it all because people want to run straight to the end of the story. they want to run straight to the ring where, you got your hands lifted up, I'm the champion. Well, okay, that's certainly possible for you, but you can have a business that's amazing. You can have a business that's highly successful doing all these things, but it's going to be a step-by-step process.
Yeah.
And, this is stuff that you teach a lot, Chris, like setting achievable goals.
Yeah.
You're going to have to look at this and say, okay, here's my gaps. Here's the things that I need to improve on. This is the stuff I need to get better at. Okay. Now we need to come up with a plan. How am I going to get better at this?
Mm-hmm.
Are there books I can read? Are there courses I can take? Is there a coach I can work with? Or is somebody out there that I know that can help train me on these things? There's somebody that can work with me. And then how am I going to set some goals? Okay, I'm looking at this, like, I need to learn how to do these 5 things. Okay, we've now broken it down into 5 things. Okay, let's go to the first one. How can I learn that? Let's just set an achievable goal on there and then develop those short-term and long-term goals. Create your action plan around it. So like, okay, I'm going to focus on learning this and I'm going to keep at it until I get good at it. And get that coaching and advice from somebody because, I've learned that sometimes even the smallest tweaks are all the difference in the world. You frequently use, my experiences at the gym and there's, they always make me do lunges all the time. And Lord knows I hate lunges. Okay? That's not a difficult answer. But then here recently, because I hated them because it was exhausting. My legs were always so tired and exhausted by the time I was done. And then I started working with Kyle in a few months ago as a new trainer. And Kyle was looking at me and going, okay, when you go down, when you go down into a lunge, when you drop your one knee and you're down into a lunge, he goes, you're pushing too much with the balls of your feet. Push with the heels of your feet. Keep your heel down. And he goes, you're going to be using a different muscle than you are if you're pushing more with the front of your foot. And now lunges have become 10 times easier. That one little tweak. So you're pushing with the wrong part of your foot. That's why it's too hard for you. Because you're trying to use your quad instead of your hamstrings. And if you use the heel of your foot, you're going to use your hamstrings. And this is going to get significantly easier for you. So it took me a few tries. It took me a while to get, okay, sure. Keep that heel down. Keep that heel down. He would just stand there walking. He would just walk next to me as I'm doing it. Heel down, heel down, heel down. Just keep saying it until I got it. Okay, heels down, heels down. I'm doing it, and all of a sudden I'm doing lunges 10 times easier. And I'm looking at it going, all this time this was hard for me because I had one little tweak that I wasn't doing correctly.
Yeah.
And having a coach who can look at you and say, hey, you're 90% of the way there, but you're doing one thing wrong.
Yeah.
And we can do that in our business where we can have a coach that can look at us and go, you know what? If you did this instead of that, life is going to get a lot easier for you.
Yeah.
And it's invaluable having someone who knows how to do it well speak into your life and make that difference. And all of a sudden you're getting that feedback, you're getting that support, you're getting those ideas, you're getting those perspectives on people who know how to do it the right way. And you're all of a sudden your growth starts speeding up and it starts going off at a much, much faster pace. And I'm just looking at it going, you know what? You can sit here on your own. You can try and tackle all these things on your own. You can be stubborn and say, no, I'm going to do this by myself. I'm just going to keep everything super cheap, but I'm never going to, invest in getting any outside help. Okay, but the fear is that when I hear that kind of stuff, the fear is that you're going to sit here and you're going to, eventually exhaust yourself because it's always going to be hard for you because you're not realizing and seeing the little things that you should be doing differently. Like on those lunges, I had no clue.
Right.
What I was doing wrong.
Yeah.
Absolutely no clue. And when I was doing it the old way, my quads were just like exhausted every single time. If I do a series of lunges, my quads were just dying.
Yeah.
They were shaking because after a while because they make you like hold weights and go more, and I'm like my legs were literally just they were shaking at the end. And now he's like, see, it's not nearly so bad, is it? Because you're doing it correctly.
I was gonna say, like a friend of mine, she's a marathon runner and she trains people to run marathons. And one of the things she talks about is, you don't start with 26.2 miles, right? You start with, let's do a 5K, or let's do a mile, depending on where you're starting from. Let's just work up, where, because if you've never run before, then you need to learn to run a mile first. And then if you do that, then let's run a 5K for 3 miles and some, right? Then it's a 10K till the point where you build up to a half marathon and then a marathon level. Like, it's a progression. And we see, here's the thing, David, I think we understand this in so many ways in life, right? And yet when it comes to our businesses and building our businesses, we either have this sense of panic and urgency that makes our brains kind of go crazy about, expectations. But I think that's what this really is. It's about managing expectations. It's about, okay, I don't know something. I've never done this before. Therefore, it's going to take me some time. But if we put ourselves in a position to have to produce this massive amount of income or results immediately, now we're not, first of all, we're just gonna keep running into walls, and we're gonna feel like a failure. We're gonna keep, being discouraged and frustrated, and we don't give ourselves credit. I know when I had my first coaching clients, like the first one of getting somebody to actually say yes and say and pay me money, that was a huge win, right? But then I'm like, okay, I can do that. Well, now my goals start getting bigger, and then it's like, well, now it's harder to get the bigger contracts. Now it's harder to get, more contracts, whatever it may be. And so, but I hadn't, built up yet. I mean, I've shared the story before, but one of my first proposals I put out there was for an international company, and it was like a $1.2 million contract based on what they were wanting to do. And then I realized, well, that person that wanted me to propose this thing wasn't even a decision maker, and that contract went nowhere. And my hopes, I'm like, man, I'm going to go from that. Once again, I thought I was special or something. Like, I'm going to go from here, 1.2 million,
right? 0 to hero.
Yeah, and it didn't happen.
Your children are going to be carrying you on their shoulders down the street. Dad, he's the best. Right?
Yeah, it didn't happen that way, right? But
usually,
what it did do that I realized after reflecting on it was I learned how to write a proposal. I actually got help. Somebody that I was talking to at the time said, here, I'll send you a sample proposal, because I didn't know where to write it. I didn't know how to begin to write a proposal for a company like that, for a contract that big. And he said, well, let me send you something that I've done as an example. And I had a template, and then I created that proposal. I'm still using a form of that proposal almost 10 years later with my contracts that I do now. And it's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. But that was the value of that experience for me, honestly, was, yeah, I'd have loved to have had the $1 million contract for sure. But in lieu of that, or in place of that, I got an experience of writing contracts or proposals that ultimately did lead to high dollar contracts with companies. Not the 1.2 million yet, unfortunately. I'm still looking for that whale. But at the same time, I know I'm a lot better because of that experience. But if I would have just said, well, I didn't get the contract, so this whole thing was a failure, and never try again. But I had to step back and say, okay, well, what did I learn through this? Well, I have to make sure I'm talking to decision makers, not just somebody kind of in the middle of the organization that can't make a decision. I learned how to write a good proposal, because the proposal was good. They liked the proposal. They just couldn't do anything with it. They had to convince too many other people to do this thing. But I learned how to get in front of people and have these conversations through that experience. And so it's funny, because the building that I did I did a lunch and learn that led to that conversation to end up giving a proposal. I still drive past that between where I live and Cincinnati sometimes. And I'll never forget that building, because I see it off to the side of the highway. And I always am brought back to that experience. But it's a very positive experience now, after I really reflected on it and realized it wasn't a failure. It was a learning experience. And and honestly, if I'd have got that, I don't think I was ready for that type of a contract yet. It could have crushed me. It could have really hurt me. I wasn't good enough yet to service that kind of contract. Today, I'd be much more confident. Today, I have much better connections to facilitate such a thing. Back then, it could have been a bad experience. So anyway, all that being said, there's a process we go through, folks, that, you're probably not good at a lot of things yet, but you're probably a lot better than you were. First of all, we're all better at walking today than we were when we were, trying to learn to walk. At least I hope.
I hope so.
In theory, we're all better at riding a bike than we were the first time we got on one, right? Like, it takes experience, it takes time, it takes repetitions. And as we go through this journey, just owning the gaps that we have and knowing that, like I said, having those, like when I run into a problem, realizing that's kind of like a dashboard light flashing at me, like I need to learn this thing. I need to grow in this area. And when we can do that, it changes. I think it just changes the dynamic and gives us the ability to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, all of this is possible for you. And I just tell people, look, you can have an amazing business. You can have a business that gives you everything that you were hoping for, but it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to microwave this business in a weekend and all of a sudden on Monday morning, here we are. Go from 0 to $1.2 million contracts overnight. That really doesn't happen for 99.99% of us. But it can happen for you if you will discipline yourself, if you will keep growing, keep taking action. You will surround yourself with people who know how to do it. Because if you're sitting, because it'll save you a lot of time. Like I said, if you have to do everything on your own and try and figure things out on your own, it's going to get very discouraging and frustrating. Yeah. Because there's things we just don't know. And it's not saying that we're not smart. It's not saying that we're not good. We don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And having people in your life who can speak into you and say, hey, try it this way. I see what you're doing. Now try it this way. And all of a sudden you go, wait, that worked. And having people who have the voice of experience, the voice of wisdom that can speak back into your life. And all of a sudden you're going to start to experience that growth. And then once you get on this journey and you start getting like, wow, I'm now a lot better at this. And I'm a lot better at that. And yet I still have a ways to go, but you can feel that growth and that momentum.
Right.
And you know that you're on your way.
Yeah.
That it's a matter of time before this happens.
Yeah.
I need to discipline myself. I need to stay on it. I need to stay on this path to keep working and growing and going. And if I will do that, I'm going to get there. But that's just all part of this journey. It's like acknowledge where you're at, see the gap, work on closing that gap.
Yeah.
Buy yourself the time to have the opportunity to close that gap. Keep working at it. Get people around you to do it. And if you will, you'll eventually get there.
Yeah.
You will eventually be successful.
And it's so important to have, like you said, the people in your corner. That's a community of people that understand what you're working on, to encourage you, to support you, to lift you up when you're feeling down, and you can do the same for them, right? That the community piece is huge, but also having experienced coaches that can come alongside you and help you, realize, okay, because once again, like you said, your trainer saw something in your form that you didn't know about. Business coaches can help in the same way. So if you need that kind of help, we have a program called Design Launch Grow, where we give you the training videos that you can, literally watch the process and learn all these different skills and aspects of business on demand, right? And at any 24/7, you have access to those videos. But we also have weekly coaching calls where we're answering your questions. We're helping you when you're saying, okay, I've tried this, but I'm stuck. I don't know where to go, or I'm not sure, what tool to use or whatever. We answer those questions. We help you wherever you are in your journey. And then finally, the community that's supporting is there to kind of help motivate you and keep you going. Because once again, this has got to be you have to have a mindset of, this is a journey. This is a process. I'm building something that's going to take time because it's valuable and it's important. And so if we can help you with that, check out designlaunchgrow.com. We have some free resources on our site. We also have the information about our program. We have a couple different options of how you can join the program. So check that out. And, David, this is an important topic that we covered today. And I hope that people walk away encouraged, thinking, okay, yeah, maybe I'm not good enough yet in this area, but it doesn't mean I can't be. And so folks, stay the course, keep moving forward. And we'd love to engage with you in Design Launch Grow. If you need to talk more about it, let us know. We'd be more than happy to chat with you about it, so that we can make sure that it's a great fit for you, because we want you to build a thriving business, serving customers that you really enjoy working with, and build that business of your dreams. So take care, and we'll see you next time.